Welcome to the Dirty Penguin Presents Movies! Welcome to the Dirty Penguin Presents Movies. That's right. I'm Kevin Waits. I am your host, and I am always joined by my faithful penguin co-hosts, Doug, Angie, Jesse, and Andy. And today we are talking about the most interesting movie about time travel that isn't really about time travel, but really is. Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
This is Andy's pick.
It is my pick. But before we get into it, why don't we get those fresh movie facts, Doug?
Fresh facts, buddy.
Give it to us straight, Doug.
Play the facts.
Give it to us straight, Doug.
I love that song. So Donnie Darko was made in 2001. Andy was telling us earlier that it went up against 9/11.
Yeah.
And it lost.
Blockbuster.
As Dewey Cox would say, how are we going to follow that?
This movie stars Jake Gyllenhaal. This movie got everybody in it. I mean, and it's like everyone.
Awesome, isn't it?
Jake Gyllenhaal,
No
Jenna
Wiley.
Malone. I know. Mary McDonnell, or as I call, never mind. Patrick Swayze, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Seth Rogen, Noah Wiley, Drew Barrymore, and that's all I have.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty good list.
At one point, Jesse watched this movie and I watched this movie separate. So at one point, she was watching it from one room and she took a break. She was like, you know, I like that Patrick Swayze character.
I imagine it was
Cross your fingers and remember that when we get to the point where we talk about that character.
5
I'm sure we may
minutes
have to
later. I changed my mind.
You, oh my, we will unpack
We
that.
were
Do
gonna
not worry.
unpack that. Yeah.
What is the Rotten Tomato score in this?
You think it's fresh or rotten? I'm gonna go with rotten.
I'm gonna go fresh. I'm gonna go 54% fresh.
That's
That's
it
not
has to be
fresh.
60.
That's 60 and above is fresh.
Oh, okay. Then I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 67% fresh.
I'm gonna go rotten.
Me too.
Rotten at
I'm gonna
38%.
I'm going to go fresh, but only because of the cult following. I'm going to say 72.
Now remember, there's all critics, so this when it comes out, 87%.
Oh, wow.
Wow, they lied.
80% audience.
And you just called
That's
it a cult
surprising.
film. I just want to point out that I think part of the reason it would probably have been a cult film anyway, but because it did open against 9/11, I don't think a lot of people went to the movies. I know I didn't go to the movies to see it when it came out, and I didn't even hear about it when it came out.
Yeah.
I discovered it later, and
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought Johnny Depp was in this movie for the longest time. I don't know. I have no basis for thinking that other than Donnie Darko sounds like a Johnny
no,
Depp
that would
movie
be
to
a
me.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah,
Oh.
I didn't know a lot about this movie, but
Yeah.
I knew Jake Gyllenhaal was the main
main
guy.
character?
It's like the movie, I see him.
But how awesome is it that he and Maggie get to play brother and sister?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
cool.
was pretty cool.
Yeah, I bet that was
That's
pretty
so
natural
awesome.
of a
I liked how she was such a Michael Dukakis.
Michael Dukakis. Yeah,
Vote for Dukakis.
that was a big theme in the during the movie. In the research that I did afterwards, that had some, like, especially in like the blogs and the whatever.
significant.
the
Doug,
fan
did you have any
theories had
other
some
fresh
significance.
facts for us, or are we ready to talk?
No, I do. I have a couple
Okay.
things. Jake Gyllenhaal uses the strategy of rarely blinking to enhance his psychotic creepiness.
Yeah,
I didn't notice anything different from any of his other roles, so
I did that.
maybe
I
he
did
just
that-
adopted
I did
it.
think this was like
Aw.
halfway through the movie. I was like, "Is this a prequel to Nightcrawler?" But at the wrap-up party for the film, Seth Rogen and Jake Gyllenhaal agreed that they had no idea what the movie was about.
Okay.
Seth Rogen was in
Fair
this.
enough.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was crazy.
It's his first film, I do believe.
So,
really?
writer-director Richard Kelly came up with the idea of the future blobs or the water or whatever
Yeah.
it was coming out of them while watching football. John Madden used to use a telestrator, and so when he'd pause it and show everybody,
Yeah.
that's where he got the idea. Kelly watched this while high and started to think, what would happen hypothetically if someone upstairs was doing it to humans? And
Just
then
saying.
Patrick Swayze wore his own clothes from the 1980s.
I can believe
Yeah,
that.
yes, that is fully believable.
I
Yes.
believe that.
He was he rocking Z Cavaricis?
I think so. Those looked very Cavarici-esque.
He was so great at the beginning of the film.
Oh,
He's,
really?
he
Oh,
plays-
well,
he
let's
plays
get there.
his role
Let's-
perfectly.
let's
Yes, he
get
does.
there.
And then there was I did read something about how Maggie Gyllenhaal wasn't cast in the movie, but she'd already done some things. Oh, it was she'd done a movie where she drank urine, and the guy was impressed with how she drank urine, and then he realized it'd be easy to have a sibling rivalry with obviously actual brother and sister, so he cast her as the sister.
That's all she had to do.
So she had to drink pee to get in this movie?
She drank pee in another movie, and he was impressed with how she drank pee.
That's how you get
Really?
noticed in this industry.
'Cause-
But I think that
Did she
Okay.
really have to drink pee for the movie?
Apparently,
They
I
couldn't-
didn't. I've never seen the
They
movie.
couldn't make like apple juice or something like that look like pee? That's committing too hard.
Their method actors.
Well, what's really
No,
great
fuck
about
No,
their whole
I'm good.
relationship in the
Yeah.
film is not only do they play off the sibling rivalry, you can tell they love each other.
Yeah, in the film, their relationship is very believable.
Because it's real.
Because it's real. Obviously.
No, but it
Yes.
plays so
But
well.
some-
And it does.
But sometimes it like that relationship doesn't come across on film, like Tom Cruise and his first wife,
Oh, Nicole Kidman.
Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
They didn't like they were married
Well,
in
there's
real
that
life,
whole-
and they didn't.
Yeah.
Thing
They
that-
didn't have the chemistry on screen, so just because they're related doesn't necessarily mean it would come across, but it did for them
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
We need to get into this.
Okay, so I'm just going to say a couple of things about Donnie Darko before it was my pick.
Yes, give us your rundown.
It was my pick for a film. It is one of
Obviously.
my favorite movies. I would not argue like it's the greatest movie ever. I'm not arguing that it's, an Oscar Academy Award winning movie. To me, it's just a highly enjoyable film. I discovered it in the early 2000s when it came out, probably a year or so after it had box office release. The first time I saw it, I enjoyed it. I liked it. Now, I revisited it about 10 years later because I knew it was a film I liked and I was looking for something to do for Halloween. And that's when I did my Frank the Bunny. And I started getting back into the movie. And I knew it was a cult classic at that time. I didn't know the extent to which, if you Google this film, the stuff
Oh
you
my
can
God.
find from individual fan theories on what the movie's about. That was when I discovered that Roberto Sparrow's philosophy of time travel, there are pages from it online that you could look up. I didn't know until more recently, as I continued to dive into this film, that is from there's a director's cut as well as a theatrical cut. I would probably say I prefer the theatrical cut, though I'm so into the film that when I watch the director's cut, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's why this is like this. Having watched the film so many times and enjoy it so much, I think one of the things I like about it the most is for just a simple singular movie that takes place in modern times, there is such a deep mythology created for this film in what he was doing with not only like Roberta Sparrow and her philosophy of time travel, but everything in the film echoes and mimics stuff. So something will come up and then it will repeat later in the film. There's a lot in this movie. I don't think anyone can watch this film and immediately be able to say, hey, this is what it was about.
Oh, absolutely.
no.
not.
No, absolutely
not.
not.
I actually saw a blog that the very first line of the article was, if you understood Donnie Darko in your first viewing, you're a liar.
You didn't.
Exactly.
But I enjoy the mythology of the film. I enjoy the fact that there's so much done in the film that in a lot of movies would be inconsequential, but almost every choice in this film, everything you see in this film, from the stuff that's written on the chalkboard to the movies that are playing when they go to the
I
theater,
left a lot of that
to the
out.
books they're reading, all of that stuff
Yeah.
is lending more credence to the film. It's purposefully placed. Even the side characters, Charisse, the heavy set Asian
Yes,
high school-
Charita.
Charita. Thank you.
Shut up.
You might think of her as
Shut
an inconsequential character, but
Yeah.
yet she is part of the story and what's going on. And I think there's, and we can dive into it more in a little bit, but I think there's a reason why her character's there. There's a reason why Donnie puts on her earphones at one point and is walking around in her shoes. There's always something going on in this film that is trying to give weight or point you in a direction. They're all it's like clues. It's like a whole bunch of clues laid out. Now, I don't know that any singular person can watch the film in a single setting and tell you what they all mean. But I think after
Absolutely
seeing
not.
it so
No.
many times, you can have a better idea. Even to this day, you could persuade me. You could argue me that while I may think one thing, you might think another. And you could probably point out some evidence for that. But I like that nature in this movie. Other than that, it's just an enjoyable film. Donnie himself as a character, for me, is entertaining. As a young guy in the 80s, he does and says some of the things that I think he's like an anti-hero.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the line that she says is purposely Donnie Darko, like, what are you, some kind of superhero? And he goes, maybe I am.
How do you know I'm not?
How do you know I'm not? Yeah. And actually he is. The whole alliteration thing with Donnie Darko. But but him as a character and watching him go from, I guess at the start of this film, mediocrity, as you watch it and he gains power and he's able to tell off Patrick Swayze at the big he becomes more and more of an anti-hero until you get to the very end where he saves the world.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. He saves not just the world, the universe.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You, Angela's not read anything about this, and
I
she's
have
only
not.
watched the movie.
No. Yeah.
Okay, so
I want to know this.
I
What
watched-
do you think happened in this movie?
Okay, I only watched the theatrical cut.
Absolutely.
I had never seen it before. It is very obviously an Andy pick.
Thank you.
I did not hate this movie.
Nor did I.
I actually enjoyed it. As the movie progressed, it changed in what I thought it was about. At first, when I started watching it, I thought it was a movie about a young man with a mental illness and how this family coped with it.
There are
Yeah.
there are fan theories about that
Because
online.
they talk about it, right? And,
Yeah.
so I'm just like, wow, this is kind of very apropos of now when people are trying to bring attention to mental health and how we need to pay more attention to it.
Mhm. I have something about
And
that I want to talk about.
I was really impressed that they were tackling the subject. And then I kept watching and I'm like, oh, okay, so it's not about that. Okay. And then at the end, I'm like, time travel. Okay.
Came out of nowhere.
It came out of nowhere. It did. And it changed the dynamic of the movie for me. It changed the way I viewed the movie just altogether.
Sure.
So then I had to go and rewatch it. And so I'm so confused.
Okay.
You know,
if you had to say right now, as Doug asked, what?
I'm confused to begin with. I understand that there's more clues in the director's cut.
Sure.
Because the first time around, for some reason, I missed that the fuselage that crashed
The
into his
engine,
house
yeah.
Was
the
on his
engine
bed.
Yeah.
was on. Well, I knew it landed on his bed, but initially he wasn't at his bed because
Yeah,
he
he wasn't
was
there.
doing his little night walking
Yeah.
thing.
Specifically, he's not in his bed because
Hey,
Frank
hey,
Because Frank has him
says,
to go do something
Yep.
or something. And in the first viewing, I missed that when you see it detached from the plane that his mom and his sister is in, it enters a wormhole.
at the end.
At the end,
Yeah.
it enters a wormhole.
You missed that part.
And yes, the first time I viewed it, I somehow missed that part. And so I viewed it again, and I'm like,
Do you?
I'm
I don't
in-
think you see that in the first one, do you? In the first
well,
time.
no, I meant my first viewing.
Oh,
of the
okay.
whole
I got
movie.
you. Yeah.
And so I'm just like, okay, well, that explains why, like, even when they were in the hotel and the little sister's like, well, it came off a plane, so why can't they find the plane? Well, they can't find the plane because the plane isn't in this reality. It's in another reality.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And
Man,
so
you got more than I got.
And so here's this engine that crashed, and at first I was just like, in my first viewing, I'm like, how did they know where it came from? Obviously, there's a plane missing an engine.
Mhm.
And then I realized, oh, well, not right now.
Right.
But then once I accepted that, and then he goes back to his room, and he's laughing in his bed, and
He's finally happy.
Yeah.
I mean,
found purpose.
it seemed kind of maniacal. His laughs came across as somewhat maniacal.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if he was having one of his manic episodes, because I don't know any of the background
No,
that goes
I
with
agree.
it.
No,
And so this is just what I got from the movie. And then it crashes on him and he dies. But he manages to save, I guess, his sister and his mom. But then it's like, wait, what? Because the bunny that's telling him to do all this stuff is the guy that he shoots in the eye after he runs over his girlfriend. But he's already got the bullet in the eye when he tells him to go burn Patrick Swayze's house. But that hasn't happened yet. And how is he already being haunted by this rabbit that hasn't been shot yet? So he's not dead yet. And then I was just like, huh. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, time travel's a bitch.
I know, right? So this was the first time I'd seen this movie.
Sure.
I unknowingly watched the director's cut.
Okay.
I found it online and it wasn't labeled. It was just labeled as Donnie Darko. And so I watched the director's cut. It had a lot more in it, especially from the Roberta Sparrow,
Yes.
Grandma Death's book.
Yeah, philosophy of time travel.
Philosophy of time travel. It had more of that. You got to see actually those pages on the screen, and I even with all that, it was hard to extract what it was exactly about.
I don't
the first
think
viewing.
if you haven't seen the director's cut, the most striking thing to me out of the director's cut that I caught was that you really don't understand why Donnie Darko says at the climax of the movie, he's got the thug on top of him with the thug's got the knife. His girlfriend's laying in the street.
What did he say? I could not hear.
He says Deus Ex Machina, which is Machine of the Gods, which in Greek plays, though they had at the end when it's too bad, man can't do enough, a god would come down on a machine and save the day. Frank the Bunny coming up in his car, as it turns a corner, Donnie Darko says, and it's a weird ass line to say in the middle of the movie at that moment, but he says Deus Ex Machina. And then the car runs over his girlfriend, which is not what Donnie wanted by any means at that moment.
But it saves Donnie. I mean, would you think that he was going to kill Donnie in that if Frank never showed up?
I think Deus Ex Machina lends itself to that idea.
I agree too.
But if you don't see the director's cut, you don't hear Donnie earlier in the film when they're talking about a book in his Drew Barrymore English class.
Yeah.
They're talking about Watership Down.
Yeah.
Which, if you know, Watership Down is about a prophetic bunny, a rabbit who knows the future, who knows that the farmers are going to kill him. But he's talking about Watership Down. He's telling Drew Barrymore he's kind of angry and upset about it. He says it's pointless. It's all Deus Ex Machina. And he says that in class. And so when he echoes it later in the street, it's not as strange. And if you only see the theatrical cut, you don't really know why Donnie out of nowhere says Deus Ex Machina.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm watching. I've seen the director's cut.
I
don't think it's necessary.
Well,
my
because
God.
I couldn't.
I was
just,
so lost.
Just like Doug, I couldn't understand what he said, and I watched it twice, and I couldn't understand what he
part
said.
of the problem with the director's cut, part of the problem with if you go online and start Googling it, I think you're going to get a lot of. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to find out about the manipulated dead, the manipulated living. You're going to find out about the power of the receiver over water and their super
everything
strength.
that happens in the book. That's the thing. That's what you get in that, and I think it does make a big difference because when I started to get really confused when watching the movie, I went back and started reading the pages of the book that they showed in the director's cut.
So I watched the movie I never seen it.
Okay.
I watched the same one she saw.
Straight up. Yeah.
And then Kevin sent the link about the book, and I read that. And so then I said, well, let me see if I can make what they're saying in this book, which I still had a very hard time understanding. And so I watched the movie again, and I see what they're saying. It just really doesn't make a lot of sense. Like,
it's hard.
Does it
It's
explain
so
how
hard.
he's being haunted by?
He's from the future.
Bunny's from
Yes. So he's Frank, and this is
just real
so
quick
hard.
before I forget, the name Frank is it's like Frank is the person
who drove the Trans Am.
Frank
Am.
is his sister's boyfriend.
That bitch in
Yeah,
Trans Am.
Is
his
that-
sister's is Maggie Gyllenhaal's boyfriend.
Okay. But then also the name, when they're doing the little town hall meeting with Patrick Swayze, the name of the boy that's so
part of
depressed
of
is Frank.
And
Like, they use his name.
It makes Donnie sit up when he hears the name Frank. Makes Donnie key into what's going on.
Good. That's so good.
Well, but so when Donnie is being haunted by
Frank the Bunny.
Frank the Bunny, does he know that it's his sister's boyfriend?
He does not.
When he's sitting in the theater
'Cause he only
and he
sees
takes
it
off
as
his mask
With the bullet hole in his head.
with a bullet hole in his eye, does he recognize him as
He doesn't. I don't think he has ever met Frank. In fact, he doesn't even know Maggie Gyllenhaal's boyfriend's name at that point.
Okay.
You don't
Okay.
learn till the very end that Frank all along is Maggie Gyllenhaal's boyfriend.
When do you learn that?
You learn that at the party. Frank says he writes a note.
Oh,
Frank
yeah,
is
yeah.
was
here.
here.
Frank
Gone
was
to
here.
get beer.
To get beer, yeah.
Oh, he was her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Because she asked for him. Okay.
Yeah, where's Frank? And I thought,
Yeah.
that's weird. Why is she asking for him?
If you get the director's cut, if you look into the philosophy of time travel,
It's
Frank the Bunny ends up being what you would call the manipulated dead.
dead. Yeah.
Okay. So the manipulate.
Okay, get ready.
I'm telling you, you don't
This is
really
gonna blow your
need all this
we
stuff.
need this
but
is gonna,
there's actually
hour to
two.
explain
There's
all this.
actually two manipulated dead in the film. So there's two people that end up dying at the end of the movie, which are Frank the Bunny and his girlfriend Gretchen.
well, and then Gretchen is weird because she converts from the manipulated living, right? Was it not manipulated living?
Is this a fan theory?
No, this is yeah.
No, they're
She like everybody, almost everybody in this existence in this temporary universe is a manipulated living.
Tangent.
Like,
Hold on.
universe.
Before we get into manipulated
Tangent
living and
universe.
everything
It's a
else.
tangent universe. Yes.
So why don't we just go over the actual theory? Because like you were saying target universe and all this stuff.
Tangent.
Tangent universe. Sorry. So
So the theory is
Go ahead.
that when the plane loses its fuselage, it creates a copy of there's a copy made of the
Yeah.
fuselage.
yeah, there is a tangent universe
glitch
that's
in the
created.
universe.
Yeah, there's a glitch in the
In the
universe.
Matrix, yes.
And a tangent universe is created.
Is that because there's a wormhole at the point
Yes.
when it loses its
No.
fuselage?
No, because
No.
he makes that wormhole
No,
with his
when
powers.
the plane lost. So
It's just a glitch. Like
It's just a glitch.
It
It's
really
just
is
a
just
glitch.
a
Yeah,
glitch.
it's just a glitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a glitch that it's a mistake that God makes, right? And that's explained by Noah Wiley's Noah Wiley.
Yeah. Mhm.
Is that his name?
Oh yeah, I can't talk about that.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's
We'll
explained
have to
by
stop this
his
conversation.
explanation, and we can watch it if you want. I have it bookmarked because it's such a perfect way to segue between. Oh, that's what this is talking about. Kind of like it's a time travel, but it's not really time travel. It's like a time travel
Different
of
dimension.
of a
So dimension
dimensional.
skipping.
Yeah, it's like time travel and interdimensionality at the same time because you're looking at
So-
time travel from God's plan perspective and not being able to manipulate it except in this tangent universe. So the whole aspect of of this movie is Donnie's mission is to write this tangent universe and so that the primary universe can go on
Gets back on track.
and doesn't destroy itself.
Right.
Right.
So the
It's-
tangent universe is the one in which he lives.
Yes. Well, it's the one
It's
we
the one
see.
in which we're seeing.
the movie,
That's the tangent.
movie takes
Yes.
place in a tangent universe.
Okay.
The whole
Okay.
movie,
Yeah.
and the tangent starts at the very beginning with the engine.
With
And
the
he doesn't
engine.
do this at black holes created, right? Or something like
Yep.
that?
He
yes,
does
the
that.
tangent universe will collapse on itself, creating a black
That
hole.
Which
is-
is the vortex.
Which will
over his
destroy the
house.
whole
But
Okay.
he used
Exactly.
telekinesis
The prime.
to create the
That is
wormhole.
great.
At the end of the movie.
So he's called the living receiver, whose mission it is to escort the artifact, the jet engine,
The fuselage.
back into the wormhole,
The prime
right?
universe.
And there's so much in the book, the philosophy of time travel, that talks about the metal and the water, and so the water is that jet stuff coming out of the people, right?
Yes.
So we are
Yeah.
all
I thought it was the
vessels.
abyss. I was like, oh, this
Exactly,
is the
we are all
abyss.
vessels
Can I add?
with the capability of time travel, right?
If we're
It's just-
tapped to be the
Exactly.
And
The living
the
receiver.
living receiver.
right.
Exactly.
And so that the philosophy of time travel was written by Roberta Sparrow,
Grandma Death.
who we are who we are led to believe in this world that she was a living receiver at one point. That's how she knows so much. Because
I'm
remember they
not sure.
said,
I'm not sure about that.
well, okay, her background story is she was a nun,
Yeah,
and then she
left the nunnery
And became a teacher,
That's what
right?
to
they
become
call
a
it.
teacher. Yeah,
Yeah.
And
And
that's
and
why I
write
got
a
the
book.
nunnery.
Teacher.
And-
I think
and-
that's important.
Mhm.
So okay, that might not be.
A what?
It's just
A science-
what is
yes, a
implied.
science teacher.
What's implied is that she was a living receiver. Her whole life changed, obviously.
Yeah.
and
This
to
is
experience that.
fascinating and amazing and great. I guess I had seen the director's cut.
Yeah, see, that's
So I could accept it?
You say it wouldn't matter. I say it matters big time.
I think it's amazing. I think it's
I
great.
think he
I am enjoying this.
I
Like,
didn't get all the.
The problem is when you start talking about all
Okay.
this, it sounds like you're just making stuff up.
Can I-
I
can
know,
I-
right?
Okay, just so we can complete this theory.
think this is
as long as we're talking about
Scientology,
the
isn't
philosophy of time travel,
No.
and just so you understand where this whole
don't
thing,
get
where this whole
don't get a
idea,
call from Tom Cruise.
where this whole idea is coming from. Frank the Bunny and Gretchen become what are called manipulated dead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They die in the tangent universe. Because they are going to die in the tangent universe, they have powers equal to Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
Now, Donnie Darko doesn't even really know he has powers. He doesn't
None of
even
them
really
do.
know he is a living receiver.
Yeah.
But the manipulated dead know what needs to happen.
And that's
to
why he's
force
getting.
and trick
Yeah.
Donnie
Donnie
Donnie.
to lead him on his path.
to get him to do what's necessary to save the Prime Universe. They're setting what is called an assurance trap.
Yep.
So Frank the Bunny is forcing him or asking him to do these things, like expose Patrick Swayze, that are going to cause events that are going to lead to
a domino path.
the domino effect that's going to lead to the death of Gretchen,
Mm-hmm.
which is where Donnie's going to realize that because he loved her, he has to do this to
Mhm.
save her and everyone else in the universe. So they're setting the assurance trap up, the manipulated dead.
But technically, every person in the tangent universe are copies.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Everybody.
Like they're not real. They're
Including-
real, but
including
they're
Donnie.
copies.
Okay.
including Donnie.
Yeah.
When the tangent universe merges is when the engine goes away, is when he gets crushed
Mhm.
by the copy of the engine, right? That tangent universe goes away, but so does also the primary universe copy of Donnie Darko.
I'm not sure what you're trying to say there.
So Donnie dies in
Both
universes
universes.
Yes.
because he has to die.
But the question-
to close
No.
the
No.
Okay,
That's-
so no, I would say no.
Okay,
and I'm also,
that's a controversial.
No, because it has to because Gretchen comes
but then
back.
how did Roberta live? Or,
Well,
or are you not on that train either? That she was a
so,
living receiver.
I
don't
this
Okay,
is the first
so-
I've heard
so
about from the
at-
reading.
at-
That was the first I like that, but I
at
don't
the
know.
point where the primary universe accidentally makes a copy of an engine fuselage, the primary universe could be said to be on hold. Nothing is happening in the private because everything is off on this tangent where Donnie survived because
Right.
Frank the Bunny saved Donnie because he's got to be able to return the fuselage.
Right.
Right.
If he let Donnie die in the tangent by this copy of the fuselage, there's no one.
And
the living
that- well-
receiver can't return the fuselage at the end of the film.
And that's why Donnie had to kill Frank. Bang. He didn't kill Frank because he ran over Gretchen. He killed Frank because Frank has to be dead so that he can guide Donnie to do all this stuff.
That's a true point. He has to be dead to be
He
able
has to be dead.
Manipulated dead.
Exactly. That's what makes Gretchen unique is that she is a manipulated living that crosses into a manipulated dead.
They're all manipulated, though.
They're all manipulated living.
They're all trying to save them.
I know they're all and they're all manipulated living, but Frank is the only one that. Well, I guess he
Couldn't
he
have been
is a
anybody,
manipulated living until he becomes. But he's dead. He's a manipulated dead in the time travel aspect of it. That's
Well,
the,
both
See, and
both
it starts
Frank
getting
and
fucking
both Gretchen
confusing.
are
Left and
manipulated dead.
cross-eyed.
And in fact, that is the argument why Gretchen, when she's introduced to the English class, and he says, "Sit next to the cutest boy," she sits next to Donnie Darko. She has to convince Donnie to love her so that at the end, her death will
matter.
Will matter.
Even at the beginning, she's like when she's introduced, she's just standing there, and her first line is, "They put me in the wrong English class."
Because she
Yeah.
had to be in his class.
And that's the
Exactly.
reason for the flooding of the school, so they could walk home together.
Well,
Wait.
maybe that's the reasoning, but the reason is like,
But Frank told him to
he
do that.
flooded the school so,
Yeah,
that,
so, like-
that him and Gretchen would meet.
Well, I like boobs. I like your boobies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was so funny.
such a good Seth Rogen line.
In the book, it talks about how the living receiver can summon powers of water and fire and strength and all these things.
The strength is how he's able to put that
Yes.
The axe and the bulldog
bronze
and the
statue.
weird
Yeah.
anthropomorphic bulldog that they
It's
have.
creepy.
It's
Yeah.
creepy with the like man body and
I heard the
It was
locker rooms
creepy.
was flooded with feces.
Yeah.
what's feces, baby, baby.
Aw.
Yeah. Okay, so that's
love
the,
the
so
dialogue in
that's
this
the so
movie.
so that's the
Does it
That's
make
the
more
generally
sense, you know?
accepted online theory for the movie.
so that's
Yeah.
Now I have my own theory.
oh
Okay. Well, why don't you think? I want to know why you don't think Roberta Sparrow is a living receiver or was.
That has a little bit to do with.
Why did she leave the nunnery?
Okay, so
Why are we calling it that? I don't
Donnie
think that's a
Darko.
thing.
because she met a Captain Von Trapp.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I don't want to bum anyone out here, but I have this idea that Donnie Darko is a Christ figure. He is the martyr. He has to
Oh,
die.
absolutely.
He has
Yeah.
to die by the end of and the whole thing is a agnostic's telling of the Christ story.
I could see that.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
I
I,
know
I,
it's
could,
gonna
I
bum
could
me
make the
out.
comparison.
No, it's not bums
But
me out.
I guess where what I'm still wondering, did we close the question, is Donnie alive? Is there a version of Donnie that's alive? Because we've closed the tangent universe, right?
With his death.
Because that's the goal, is to close the tangent universe, collapse it on itself, and destroy it. That's in the text.
But in the Prime universe, the very end of the movie is the Prime universe. Donnie,
right. So and in which Donnie is dead.
Yes, he's dead.
So both Donnies, what I had to say was what I was saying was correct. Both Donnies die. Both versions of Donnie. The copy
well, because
Donnie.
the tangent ceases to exist the moment Donnie's in bed and the fuselage hits.
That's what I'm saying. The tangent ceases to exist, and the primary universe Donnie gets squished by the engine.
Yes.
Right there. So that both Donnies die.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Yes.
For lack of
Both Donnies go away. They go away.
They stop existing.
Yes, they cease to exist.
And the
Both of
universe
them do.
lives
Which is
on,
what you
and
were
he
saying.
saved
Right.
the world.
He saved the world.
Right, but some of the folks still have remnants of it.
Dreams,
right?
yes.
Which is
So
like
that's why Frank is sitting at the end, just
Rubbing his
like
eye.
rubbing his
Exactly, rubbing
eyes
his
because
eyes.
he remember.
And Gretchen sees the family and they're like, what is that? There's like a connection between the mom and the something or other, because
Can I tell you a little bit about that moment?
Sure.
Richard Kelly said he had to have that moment in the film because he remembered as a kid, he was standing outside a hotel and there was a woman who came to the window at the hotel and was staring down at him. And he remembered looking at her and she waved and he thought it was a really weird, strange moment that he wanted that in his movie.
Oh, right on.
Well, because I don't think the parents ever met her.
No.
So they
No,
wouldn't.
at this point,
so they
at
wouldn't
the-
remember
at
her.
that point when they go back to October 2nd,
Yeah, and
she
that's
hadn't even met Donnie yet.
So what's the argument against?
I also like the movie because my birthday's October 2nd. And it starts on
28
October 2nd.
days.
and it ends on October
And Graham
2nd.
Green was born on October 2nd.
I've
Who's-
seen Bonanza.
Who's in the, I've seen Bonanza.
What's the argument against him being crazy and it being the Jacob's Ladder scenario?
Oh, yes. I think,
The therapist straight out says
yeah.
he's a paranoid
He's-
schizophrenic.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And we need to up his medication.
And it's an odd thing for her to say because if you've seen the director's cut, she also tells Donnie at one point, you can
They're
stop
all-
taking
they're all
your medication.
placebos,
They're
yeah.
placebos. They are just water.
Yeah.
Which
She does say that.
is a fan theory that is, as a manipulated living, she's been giving Donnie water to help empower him to do the things he needs to do.
Because with time travels water.
Well,
and
I did
metal.
not see that. And
Well-
all I heard her was tell the parents, we need to up his medication because
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
he's
so,
cray-cray.
so I like the idea that this is more than just an agnostic's telling of the Christ story. I'd like to think that this is kind of the telling of what someone with mental health problems, that they're telling of what someone else looking from outside in to their own problem looks like to them, right? So it's like someone with mental health problems version of what someone else is describing of them. I don't know if that even makes sense. The way you're looking at me tells me that it doesn't make sense. But so we talk about Donnie's.
Well, it
very
does.
obviously he's not taking his meds at the beginning, right?
You're just trying to, I guess, say that someone is trying to shine a light on on a person who doesn't have paranoid schizophrenia on what it's like to live with paranoid schizophrenia when you don't have paranoid
Yes.
schizophrenia.
Yes, thank
But
you.
trying to tell the story in a way where
But I mean, he was
you
already
feel like you're lost.
He was already
Yeah.
sleeping on golf courses
But that was
at the beginning
Yes.
of the movie.
Yes.
oh.
Well, he had problems before
That's
this
right.
started.
What, yeah.
Yeah.
Like he had a history.
So I mean, and we
Yes.
don't really know.
He was
Well, he
had-
was not
apparently
a
he burned
happy.
a house
He was
down.
not
Yeah,
a
but-
happy
but-
child or a
My favorite line was,
young man.
"I've got emotional problems. What right is this?"
Yeah.
Well, I mean, would
He
you
had a-
say that he was an angsty teenage
I would
boy?
say he was someone suffering from mental illness.
Well,
I don't know what brought him out to that golf
I know,
course.
but I mean, look at the
Or was it
surroundings.
the mountain? He was in the middle of the street on the mountain.
He's actually
He's
at
at
the point
the golf
at
course,
the
right?
start of the movie takes place at the same place where he ends the movie and sends the
Right, but
He's on top of
I
that
thought
ridge
that-
on that mountain on his
I'm
bicycle.
only assuming that the tangent universe would have started.
There's
with-
even one theory that he's there at the start because this tangent is a loop, and
Yeah,
that
time loop.
moment is he failed to send it back.
But let me
Oh,
ask.
So he's
great.
getting on his back.
That's another
Yeah, that's another
open your
kind of-
I
eyes.
don't buy
Yeah.
that. I don't buy that. I don't
Because he
see
didn't
any
kill the
evidence
Omega.
to that. I don't.
Exactly.
Well, wait, but Patrick Swayze, when they saw him sleeping, he was at a golf course. It was a golf course. Wasn't
Yes.
that was the
Yes.
second time.
Yeah.
That was the second time.
Oh, okay.
He remember he at the very beginning of the movie he wakes up in the middle of the street.
The golf
And
course
then, like,
is,
Quicksilver's
is
his way
where
down.
Frank led him to sleep.
Well, I mean, look at his surroundings. They are this is an affluent family.
Yes,
They have
that
nice
Porsche.
house.
That was a nice Porsche.
I mean,
right?
yeah, they have nice house, nice cars, nice neighborhood, golf courses. They all dress nice. They all look nice. Yet Donnie Darko is not happy. I mean, I think there's a statement there about we give you. His parents seemed really. I liked his parents. They seemed really like
Okay.
right. No.
My favorite part of his dad is when they're in the parent teacher conference after he told her to
I
shove
love
the
his
thing,
dad, yeah.
and
Up my
she's like,
anus!
"Up my-" and the dad just like, and then he like
Yeah.
has to cover it up by coughing. I'm like, this is such a dad.
Well,
it's such a
usually,
dad
Fucking
thing.
awesome.
usually these
I
types
think
of movies.
I think I
Love the
love
dad.
his family in this film.
That's what I
think
mean.
they're
Usually
so
the-
normal,
the
so
dad-
healthy.
And,
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I thought it was going to be about mental illness
Yeah.
and how this family is coping with it because they were so
I'm still
I mean,
of the
they were
opinion. I'm of the
portrayed as
opinion
so
it was about
real. You
Yeah.
know, like this is how parents would try. Like they're trying to cope with their son that has this mental
But their
illness,
parents
and,
aren't.
and that's
but they're not
Well, let
like.
me-
that's
treating
kinda what
him
I was
like he's
trying-
crazy.
That's kind of what I was trying to say. The challenges that people with mental health go through can be like it's the weight of the universe that's on them. But what we're looking at it as, oh, they're just doing crazy shit, right? They're sleeping on a golf. That's what I was trying to say. Like, so to a person that has mental health problems, maybe they're like, wow, the weight of the universe depends on me, and this stresses me out. I got to do all this crazy shit. But that all it looks like to us who are
It's
mentally
him being
healthy-
paranoid schizophrenic.
exactly.
I just wanted my point was is that he didn't have the asshole dad or the asshole mom or the broken. They seemed to all get. He seemed to, even though he was kind of brooding and angsty and like
Isolated.
yeah, he still got along with his family pretty well. Seemed like a normal family. There wasn't any catalyst that I could see that was like.
and that's why I
And that's
thought
what
it
I was
was
trying
about
to-
mental health because
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
it doesn't
which would have been-
matter
which
how
makes sense
great
to
your
them.
home life is.
Right.
It doesn't.
Yes,
it
it doesn't
doesn't
matter. Yes.
dictate
I
whether
liked
you're
that.
going to have a mental health issue or
Yes.
not.
So like the note that I wrote down that I've been trying to decipher could be an allegory about how mental health is viewed, diagnosed, and treated. In the director's cut, which I didn't know that it was, she was giving him placebos, these water pills, and how dangerous can that be to someone who actually needs some sort of psychoactive drug, right, in controlled environments, whatever, some sort of treatment that isn't a water pill. I get the idea behind using placebos and all that stuff, but who knows? Maybe that wasn't the treatment that you should have done in the 80s.
what we're finding out more is we've Googled it and
Yeah.
read about
Yeah, the
watched the
manipulated-
director's cut that it's not about that.
It's
Right.
not about
It's
that.
not
but
about
it's
that.
totally about
it
control.
could be.
I think there's subtext in
Text,
there.
okay.
I think it could be a theme. Absolutely. There's
I
themes
think-
of
I don't
politics
think, I
in
don't
there
think,
too. with-
the idea that there is the mental health issue in there, I think that's part of Donnie's character. He had the mental health issues before the tangent universe was even created. I mean, he
or like
I think that's part of his character, but he's,
yeah, maybe in like the character development, and maybe this is what he shares with the Roberto Sparrow character. maybe those mental health, maybe it's not a mental health disorder. Maybe that paranoid schizophrenia gives you some sort of connection with the ability to be a living receiver. I mean, you know what I mean?
And I don't know if I'm using this correctly, or is it just a red herring? Like where they're telling you like, oh, he's got these mental health issues so that you think the rabbit and everything is all totally mental health. Yeah. It's all, you're like, oh, this is all a paranoid delusion. And then at the end you realize, no, it's not. So they're just trying to lead you down this path just to slam you with the,
I like that idea.
You know, so like, is that what they're trying to do?
No, I like that idea. I like that as a strategy, using that as kind of like as maybe not as a red herring, but as a MacGuffin to move the plot along, right? Here's what you think
is happening.
And then they kind of like flip it on its side.
Now that we've discussed the mythos and mythology behind what's happening, can we discuss the actual movie? Because there's a few, because all we're doing right now is like doing all the like
analysis,
but there's like movie.
All right,
there's some good stuff.
I want to talk about how Jess thinks Patrick Swayze was such a great character at the beginning of this movie.
He was so fun. Okay, so he walks in and he starts his little hype up. What is he?
Public speaker.
Yeah, but kind of the Tony guy.
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins guy. And he comes in.
He's
like, hey, this is
problematic.
Patrick Swayze, and he runs out and he's like, what does he say?
What's his name in it? What's his name in that movie?
Jim Cunningham.
Jim Cunningham.
So he runs out and he greets the audience and he's like, is that all the gusto you can muster? Oh, come on. I was like, great line.
His Texas accent comes across pretty strong.
He was cheesy. I thought he was funny. I had no idea what was in his basement until 5 minutes after I sat here and told Kevin.
I loved how like you get the like the people that were really affected in the Tangent universe and they wake up back at October 7th and like you see Patrick Swayze, he's sitting there, he's crying, and he's like,
he's a terrible
because
person.
he's a horrible person.
Yeah,
conflicted by his horribleness.
His character about halfway.
Again, as part of what the religious allegory that's in the film, Donnie calls him the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's disgusting. Well, and as I'm watching the movie, I'm like, is that Patrick Swayze? And I'm just like, is that Drew Barrymore? Is that Noah Wiley? Like, there's just a whole bunch of names.
Drew was a surprise. Love her.
Just a few notes. At the beginning of the movie, or somewhere towards the beginning, his sister's jumping on a trampoline. Mm-hmm. And that is what I remember trampolines being. Just like the springs all just exposed like that, waiting for your ankle to get caught in it and broken. Mm-hmm. Because we have a friend that bought a trampoline for his girls, and they have like this padding around where the springs are, and it's got like this net that goes all the way around.
And it's just like an old school playground.
And apparently that's how it was always supposed to be, but I don't remember that at all.
That is the number one sold SKU at Academy. 14-foot trampoline. Mm-hmm.
My kids love trampolines. Whenever we go somewhere with a trampoline, they love it. But it's like, it's all safe now, and it's got the padding and the net to keep it from falling out.
It was Mad Max Road Warrior.
Yes, it was.
But and I'm just like, that, and when I say,
if you get your ankle caught in the little metal springs, everyone's just going to keep jumping around you.
Yes,
37 children on the trampoline.
You're not joking. That's how it was. And it was like
fucking battle royal.
Let's see if we can go 20 feet in the air. You know,
trying to dump the
broken jaw.
I like the music.
Oh my God,
the music was so good.
Yeah.
As typical of an Andy choice,
yeah.
Oh my God,
that's true.
But it's just true, yeah.
The Mad World at the end. Oh my God! As soon as it started playing, I was like, "Ah, that's awesome."
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Perfectly placed.
The movie was just the music throughout the movie was just like, that was a note I made. It's like, the music is great. I love the movie, and it seemed like they were trying to push a fear/love theme throughout the movie, and I don't.
Oh yeah,
it was
weird.
That
was the one that Donnie was debunking. The whole you can't you can't just like bucket into two.
Well, and then when he went off on the teacher, he's just like, it's not either or. There's gray.
Exactly.
But but at the end, I'm like, well, was it a theme or was it just something thrown out there? I think that was kind of like an in your face
kind of fuck you middle finger to all of those
People that
self-help guru bullshit that is a predator. I mean, really, Tony, look at Tony Robbins. It is a predatory.
I think it was part of, if you look at it from one view, the whole fear versus love thing is really what Donnie is going through. And he doesn't want to simplify it to that. He doesn't want to. And in fact, I think that the Jim Cunningham character, if you look at him as an Antichrist, is trying to force Donnie away from choosing between fear and love. He's trying to make it look silly because it's Donnie's fear that he's going to die alone, which he has to overcome because he discovers love.
love.
And if he doesn't discover love, he wouldn't be able to overcome his fear.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think it's an important
I
theme
like
in the
that.
film, but I don't think I think Donnie defeating it to Jim Cunningham it is silly, right? When you look at it that way, and I think he's trying to force Donnie to not do the right thing.
But I think he also, it's not just he knows that it's fear and love, but he like Donnie says in the movie, there's lots of other things that happen because we see him. I think that's why he's laughing at the end. It's about not just fear or love. It's about overall, like, experiencing life, emotion, sadness, happiness, all of the emotion, not just fear and love. If you just experience fear and love and you don't have happiness or sadness or,
even anger.
Thank you. Anger or hatred, or there are all these other emotions that
So sweet with the sour.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that lead to that make life.
Yeah.
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 Life is more than just those two. And can we discuss sparkle motion?
Most famous line from the movie. I'm seriously beginning to doubt your commitment
To sparkle
Your
motion.
commitment.
to sparkle motion.
They weren't good, and it's like
it was so
Star
bad.
Search.
They
They're
weren't
so
on.
Star Search.
They weren't choreographed on time, but people were acting in that like crowd like it was the most amazing thing they'd ever seen. The lady
was
that's like grading them,
sparkle
she's just like
motion.
nodding her head like, oh yeah, this is it. This is what's going to go to LA and win us a trophy.
Can you not hear me? Sparkle motion.
But Sparkle
And-
Motion had to win
And I
to
like,
force the airplane flight.
Yep.
So Donnie had to go burn down Jim Cunningham's house
So
to
get
force his
arrested.
mom to have to be,
to
on,
have
the
to be
flight,
on the flight.
Yeah.
so that they could throw the party.
It's all fate. I wrote this. It's all fated to happen. Donnie has to kill Frank. Frank has to run over Gretchen for the universe to resolve. Donnie is the chosen one. He's the chosen one of this universe.
Which, yes, that's
Of this temporary
That's amazing.
universe. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that makes it even better.
Yeah.
Like
I loved this.
I oddly enough really really enjoyed this movie,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did too.
and all this discussion we've had makes me like it more.
yeah,
Yeah.
same here.
Yes.
Watch it again and watch all the times that you'll see those echoes, those or placements of books or
Or when Drew Barrymore doesn't she recommend cellar door?
Yeah,
she,
cellar
she
door.
has
So-
cellar
oh,
door written on the
I looked that up, and that's actually a thing.
Oh, really?
Yes,
But it also
her
is the way
theory
that Donnie
she
ends up getting into Roberto Sparrow's house later through the cellar door.
yes,
It was just an example.
but it's they didn't just make that up for the movie. Like
Yeah.
you look it up,
No.
and this is actually like that combination of letters and words is actually considered to be like the most like
beautiful
syllabic,
Yeah.
Pleasing combination of
Cellar door.
words.
Cellar
Cellar
door.
cellar
door.
door.
What's
I mean, because your mouth just kind of like cellar door. And your mouth just closes into like the cellar door.
So they're talking about
Cellar
Graham
door.
Greene's
Yeah,
the
I can see that.
Destructors in the movie, and then they talk about Watership Down, and then they had the cellar door on there. All of that's the only thing that I've never seen in a fan theory or an argument online is, and it's the first book I've noticed in the movie ever is from the opening sequence when they're walking into the house. Donnie's mother is reading Stephen King's It.
Yes, I did notice that.
And I think that, to me, is a setup of the whole film, and the fact that it is a movie about loss of innocence, a book about loss of
So
innocence.
there's a trivia on this.
What's the trivia on this?
That
On It?
they wanted her to be reading Tommy Knockers, which is about another dimension.
Oh.
but I think they couldn't find it, so they just had her settle over reading it.
Interesting.
Oh, that is interesting.
Because Tommy Knockers is the movie that would make much more
About
sense.
another
Yeah.
dimension. Okay. That does make sense.
And in
I
fact,
thought-
it's almost
to
like-
me, it made sense because of one, it's a lost innocence tale, and two, the creature it is not what it seems, and Frank is not what it seems, and when he's running around, and you'll notice that the guy in the car
There's a clown.
is a clown. His friend is a clown.
Creepy.
Before I forget to, because I really wanted to. I really liked it at first. What really drug me into this whole story at first, before finding out any backstory or mythology or anything, I was creeped out when Frank was like, "Hey, follow me." What does he say? Follow me. Come with me. The world will end in
Wake up,
28 days.
Donnie.
Wake up, Donnie. I mean, that creeped me out. I was like, this is a horror movie,
Yeah.
which I was totally for.
Psycholo-
So, I mean, that's
I
what
would
got
think
me in it.
Psychological, yeah, because I wasn't.
Psychological.
There
chiller?
was never a point in which I was like, I don't know if I can handle this. It was
I
it
just,
was good.
yeah, I just, at first, it had the remnants of like a straight up horror
Mhm.
movie. Like, I thought that bunny was
I
going to
think
kill
Which is
him.
what I thought it was, and that's why I had never
I loved
seen it.
the first time I
Yeah.
saw it when you don't know what's going to happen, and him and Frank are talking through the mirror, and he's like, "How can you do these things?" And he goes, "I can do whatever. You can do them too, Donnie." But Donnie picks up the knife,
And he's
it's
stabbing him through the
in
mirror.
through the mirror in that eye, and that's ends up being where he shoots him later.
Right.
Well, the researching that's symbolic of Donnie breaking the fourth dimension. So that's him breaking the fourth dimension and then gaining a lot of those powers, starting to realize that he's not in his primary universe. I can't. Why
I
can't I
know.
think it?
That's,
Not in his
So-
primary universe. That's where he's starting to think of that, and that's where he starts to go back to, and he's
yeah.
trying to break through the fourth
Another
wall.
favorite scene, just real quick. I love the Smurfs dialogue.
Yeah.
Oh, no
Yes,
kidding.
that was
Love
His
it.
theory on
great.
Smurfs.
Yes, that
I
was
like his
so
theory on
funny.
Smurfs.
There's some trivia on that too. So they had went to the people who created the Smurfs, and they wanted to use a Smurf doll, but on the conference call about it, they agreed to let him do that because it's accurate on like how
Yes.
Smurfs have sex.
They don't.
Yeah, I read that too. Yeah. The creator of the Smurfs gave them permission
Permission
to
to
use
do
the
that.
Smurfs in the scene. That scene is also setting up the fact that Donnie can shoot because he's shooting.
Yeah,
22.
I also
That's
find
good.
it weird though when you talk about these theories and manipulated dead and whatnot that it's none of them. It's not Frank that leads Donnie to get his father's gun. It's the
wormhole thing.
wormhole
Liquid
thing.
helper.
Yeah, that's
the
or-
helpers,
no,
as Donnie
no,
calls them, the
no,
helpers.
yeah, but according to the
The book?
rules of the world of the movie, that's God.
About to say, yeah.
Yeah.
So that would that be the? Well,
Yeah,
I guess
that's
the
Donnie
machine of the
moving
god.
in God's channel.
Exactly. Thank you. That is what God
That's what
wants
Noah
Donnie to do.
and Donnie are talking about.
Yep. That is the path that God is
That's
directing.
again. That's part
for.
of all why I kind of see it as the agnostics telling of a Christ story because you
I
have
like that.
you have Roberta Sparrow, who
Yeah.
interestingly enough goes from being a nun to a science teacher. When typically in a religious tale you'd have someone go from a science background, they discover God and they go become a religious prophet. She did the opposite and wrote her book. She's like the prophet for Donnie, right? She writes the book that he reads later, and then he starts thinking about time travel and trying to figure out wormholes and how he's going to get this back up. He has a conversation with Noah Wiley.
Right.
And then the movie titles, when they go see the movies, the double feature is The Last Temptation of Christ. It's Evil Dead and The Last Temptation of Christ. Which is a bizarre double feature.
Right.
Does he realize what's happening when he reads her book? How does he realize what's happening and what he has to do?
I think he gets a lot of instruction out of the book, which is
Yeah.
what he,
Out of the
which is
book.
what the,
Yeah,
which
the
is what
book.
the conversation that's in the theatrical version between him and Noah Wiley is about. He's
Yeah.
trying. Noah Wiley is a science teacher, non-religious guy who's trying to say, well, then you don't have freedom of choice,
Yeah.
Donnie. And Donnie's trying to argue that that he does have freedom of choice. That he does have, but it's okay because he's going to choose to walk God's path.
Hard.
Yeah, he's going to walk within God's channel. He
Yeah.
can just see
Hard.
exactly. He can just see where it's leading him. And I
know, it's so strange.
It's so deep. I love the deepness of this movie, but I mean,
But you needed the Googleizer to help you
oh,
out. with this one.
absolutely, big time, big
Yeah,
time.
and
I did too. I did too. That's the
guys
only
this.
reason I
Even
have
after you Google it,
anything
again,
to
I'm
offer.
not. I have trouble with the fact that Gretchen is supposed to be a manipulated dead. I
Yeah.
get the theory and the thing, but she just doesn't feel like when they're in the movie theater. You know, some people say, well, because she's a manipulated dead, she falls asleep, stays asleep long enough for him to go do what he's got to do and get
No.
back and doesn't notice it. And I don't feel.
She at that
I
point
don't
she's a
feel like
manipulated
she's.
living.
I don't feel like she's acting like Frank the Bunny. But
No,
I don't
know,
because
because
she's not.
she's
Because at that
even
point,
choosing to sit next to him in the
But
English
no, wait,
class.
that you can't use both because Frank dies the same day, same time that
Yes.
Gretchen does. So how can one? Be,
actually a little bit after her?
so
No,
how can
so
one be
the theory
manipulated?
is one chooses to come back, and Gretchen does not choose to come back.
What?
So, like, Frank chooses to help. Frank
Yeah.
chooses because he's the ability
because
to.
that will
Because he dies
redeem
there.
himself.
He chooses to go and, like, to do all the stuff with.
Oh, I just
But
thought they were
then
both manipulated
Gretchen
dead.
doesn't choose to do it.
right.
Or
that pokes a hole in my.
or in no matter what happens, Donnie is going to shoot Frank in the eye.
But they don't have free
However,
will in Tangent
Gretchen
Universe.
dying is not something that always
Exactly.
happens.
Yeah, that's
So-
that's Frank has to die. He is the manipulated dead. That's why I don't think Gretchen is a manipulated dead until she actually dies.
Which is really
because that
bizarre and kinda
because that
contradicting and-
well, because
Well,
that-
but I
that-
mean,
no,
That
because
death
that
is what
motivates-
gives him the
that's what
impetus
motivates Donnie.
to-
That's what motivates Donnie.
but I mean, you can say something
then-
technically about Frank. He's not manipulated dead until he dies.
Right. That's what I was going.
but
no, and-
he's
and
there
I-
at the
I agree with
beginning
you.
in haunting Donnie from the beginning.
In theory, though, Gretchen could be able to do that.
Right. That's what.
That's what
That's what I
my
thought,
problem
too.
with why calling her a manipulated dead bothers me.
No. The only reason Frank has done this is because in the future, in that timeline, because previously that universe didn't exist. But in that universe's future, he runs over Gretchen. He has chosen to go back and be the manipulated dead and kind of lead Donnie through this path, right? There's another descriptor that Frank is that Frank fits into that. Gretchen doesn't fall into that because in that future, Frank commits a atrocity. He runs over Gretchen. Gretchen doesn't have to die in order for the universes to come together. The only thing that has to happen is Donnie has to get the artifact, the engine back. That's the only thing that has to happen. But in order for that to happen, he has to find his love or whatever. He has to have emotions and have all of that. So Frank has to run her over. He has to shoot Frank.
Well, back to the movie titles. I think in some ways she is part of his last temptation, right? He's finding love. He's doing the. He at some point he tells, is it a psychiatrist? He says something about drugs, drinking, and sex, or three things that he. And then you see him smoke a cigarette. He drinks at the party, and him and Gretchen have sex.
Yeah.
And then after he's done those three things, he's able to move on with his, I guess, death, with his choice to be the.
He's experienced it all.
Yeah.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
He can
And
now
on that
say
note-
he's seen it all.
Yeah.
That's right. And on
Yeah,
that note,
it's
it's not going to get any better.
Yeah, I would just say
I'm gonna let his fuselage fall on my head.
And be happy about it.
Donnie Darko's a great film. If you haven't seen it and you just listen to this, you probably know more about it than you should.
Yeah, especially if you didn't watch it.
But it's a great film, and I can still watch it to this day as I looking for clues and I just enjoy the mythology of it. I enjoy the dialogue. I love the characters. I like the way they talk to each other, and it's a great to me.
Yeah,
great
flippers
cult,
up
cult,
for me.
Cult,
Yeah,
cult
flippers
film.
up.
Yeah,
The
I
flippers
liked
up.
it.
Final thoughts?
I liked it. I don't know.
I surprisingly
Surprised me too,
enjoyed
yeah.
it.
Yeah, well done.
And
Andy.
I enjoy, and I like it even better with all this explanation that's been happening. I enjoyed it. I like it.
I
Two
guess
flippers up,
you'll need to go watch the director's cut.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
So eventually.
I need a
Maybe
break.
not in the next 6 months.
I've seen it
That's
twice.
not running towards it.
It was good. I enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to see it again for a while.
For a while, yeah. I'll watch it again.
I can
Absolutely.
almost go watch it.
I had a lot of fun researching the movie. I had fun
Yeah,
watching
me too.
the movie,
Yeah.
but I had a lot of fun
Yeah.
researching
Delving
the movie.
into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and saying, "Oh my God, how deep is this film?"
Yeah.
yeah. It's crazy when you start realizing how much, and you can, if you start YouTubing in all the different
Yeah.
people
Yes,
with their
yeah.
theories
Oh,
and
there's
what's
so
going
much.
on, and they'll go into it.
It's a
Oh,
deep
I love
rabbit
doing
hole.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Rabbit.
Well, there's a
But
lot
don't-
of talk about that too.
It's a deep Frank hole.
Yeah.
Sometimes I end up doing that before I see the movie, and I just ruin it for myself. But
I used to work with people that used to call it a bunny hole. And that's such a pet peeve. It's not a bunny hole. There's no need to cute that phrase up.
Why would you cute that up? It's
I
not
know,
like it's a bad word. It's a rabbit hole.
I know. You're going down the rabbit hole. I don't want you to cute it up. It's a rabbit hole.
Yeah,
What?
Not the
Wait, what do they call it? What do they call it?
I don't want to go down the bunny hole.
They don't
it's
sound right.
I think I'd kick someone's ass. if
I
they
know,
told me that.
right? That's exactly it was such a pet peeve. I just said,
Office
no,
Space.
you're going down the rabbit. The phrase is going down a rabbit hole. No
That
one
is
goes
the
down
phrase.
a bunny
Why
hole.
would you change it? It's not
I
like it's
know.
a bad word.
Exactly.
Anyway.
All right, that about does it for our Donnie Darko episode. I think it's flippers up all the way around.
yes, absolutely.
Right now, those of you that are listening right now, if you haven't done so already, I want you to go to our Twitter page at Dirty Presents and vote what you want to hear for next season. What do you want us to talk about? What
Throw us
is
your
the
suggestions.
topic? I know. What is your topic
Yeah.
that you want to hear us talk about for season 4 of the Dirty Penguin Presents movies? Go to our Twitter page. Go to our Tweety page.
our Twitter page.
Yeah, go to our Twitter page.
Tweet us a tweet.
Tweet us at the tweeter at Dirty Presents. Go to our Facebook or Instagram pages at the Dirty Penguin Presents. Hit us up on an email.
We want to know what you think about this movie.
Yeah,
What's your theory?
Exactly. Go leave some comments on our website, thedirtypenguinpresents.com.
But don't mention bunny holes.
Yes, no fucking bunny
Don't
hole.
send us down any bunny holes.
Yes, it's called a rabbit hole, okay? Either that or call it a Frank hole. I'm going to go down a Frank
I don't
hole.
want to talk about
Frank
Frank
holes.
hole.
That's what I'm going to call it from now on. I don't want to go down a Frank hole or nothing.
I want to get deep into this Frank hole.
I want to go down deep into this Frank hole. That's it from now on. We're going, well, I'm going to get shoulder deep in this Frank hole.
Yeah.
But go see. Tell us what you want us. Tell you what do you want to hear? What should we talk about? What's the topic of movies should we talk about? Go to our Facebook page, Instagram, Twitters, email, our website, thedirtypenguinpresents.com. We're always leaving new material. Our next movie, season 3, episode 5, will be
The Blair Witch.
The Blair
Witch
Project.
Project. That's right. The originator of the found footage. category.
That's
Not really.
debatable.
It's
Oh, is
not.
That's debatable.
It's not.
Well, according to me, it's okay.
That's very master
There was-
debatable.
Yeah.
Let's we'll do the Blair Witch
and on that
Project. Bring your map, bring your compass so we don't
Yeah,
get
bring
lost.
your map and hey, let's
And your compass.
let's all. But when you watch the Blair Witch, say a prayer for the sound guy. All right, that does it for the Dirty
He's such an
Penguins.
asshole.
Squawk it out. Squawk, squawk, squawk.